Did a doctor murder his lawyer? Business trips and conventions are like sleepovers. You go so you can do what you can't do at home. Stephen Smith crime scene photos are rather compelling, kind of convincing that maybe he wasn't involved in a hit and run. Why are jury instructions so important? They're probably one of the main reasons cases get reversed. We'll talk about it. Why, yes, I can arrest you, Mr. Legislator, and I am. And then finally, our dumb criminal of the day. Let's talk about it. Good day, everyone. My name is Scott Reich, and this is Crime Talk. Thanks for watching. You know the drill. Subscribe if you haven't, like if you do, hit that little bell, leave me a comment, and remember you can listen to us anytime on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Now, let's support the people that support Crime Talk.
As a pet owner, you want to give your furry friend the very best. That's why Baked in Colorado's CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect choice. These delicious treats not only taste great, but they also provide a wide range of health benefits for your pet. CBD has been shown to have many positive effects on dogs, including reducing anxiety, alleviating pain and inflammation, and improving overall wellness. Baked in Colorado's treats are infused with premium, full-spectrum CBD oil, meaning your pet will benefit from the whole plant extract. Not only that, but Baked in Colorado's treats are made with all-natural human-grade ingredients, so you can feel good about what you're giving your pet. They're also free from wheat, corn, and soy, making them a great option for dogs with food sensitivities. Baked in Colorado CBD-infused dog treats are the perfect way to support your pet's health and well-being. With various flavors, including peanut butter, pumpkin, and bacon, your dog will love them too. So why wait? Head to www.bakedincolorado.com today and order your dog a bag of these delicious and nutritious treats. Your pet will thank you for it.
Let's go ahead and open the record for March 27th, 2023, and begin our docket. Did a doctor kill his lawyer or his opposing counsel? Well, let's take a look at this. A guy by the name of Dr. Tomas, T-O-M-A-S-Z, Kosowski, K-O-S-O-W-S-K-Y, has been charged with first-degree murder. And this took place over the weekend, and it was in regards to the disappearance and the death of a lawyer by the name of Stephen Kazi, C-O-Z-Z-I. Now, Mr. Kazi, the lawyer, was last seen at work this past Tuesday, and the police found out rather quickly that they believe foul play was involved. Why, Scott, did they think foul play was involved? The lawyer, Mr. Kazi's wallet, his phone, and keys were found in pools of blood in the bathroom where the law firm where Mr. Kazi worked. And some people also said that they smelled bleach coming from the same area after Mr. Kazi disappeared. What could have led the police to that conclusion? Anyway, Sunday, the police searched the good doctor's house, and they, although did not reveal what they found further information leading them to believe that he was responsible for the lawyer's disappearance. Kazi's law firm had been representing the doctor's former employer, the Loeffler Institute for Plastic Surgery, over a dispute resolved out of billing issues and some bad reviews. The suit apparently came out of the fact that the Loeffler Institute assigned a woman to do the billing and file claims about this, and apparently things weren't getting done. So the doctor got blamed, and there were some negative reviews online of the doctor. And anyway, this has involved the dispute. So the doctor alleged that he had a promising young career, but it was all obliterated by this woman's actions, which were directly related to the Plastic Surgery Institute. And the doctor alleged that through no fault of his own, his career was put in jeopardy and his reputation was tarnished. And the good doctor left this Loeffler Institute of Plastic Surgery back in 2018 and set up his own practice. So this one has a little more to unfold, so to speak. Because it's unclear whether the lawsuit was involving the Loeffler Institute for Plastic Surgery as the defendant, where the doctor was suing, or whether they were working together in some way. It seems as though the good doctor maybe had something negative, some bad feelings with the opposing counsel. This is just a weird case. We're going to have to wait and see how things develop on this one. I think there's more to come. Let's just wait and see on this one. Next, business trips and conventions are like sleepovers. You go on them to do what you can't do at home. Well, this is Mr. Nathan Millard. He's now dead. He was found wrapped in plastic and carpet off of a Baton Rouge highway after he reportedly collapsed from an accidental overdose on March 6th. Why? Well, he reportedly was partaking in prostitutes and drugs on his business trip. Now, that's what I'm saying. He was on a business trip, and according to the arrest affidavit of the now defendants, he came upon 2 prostitutes while looking for something to make him feel better, including possibly a girl to take back to his room. Well, the 2 prostitutes are Tiffany Guidry and Tabitha Barner. Needless to say, the wife of the father of 5 was rather shocked by his death, and I understand. My condolences. And it also appears that Mr. Miller's wife says she didn't receive her usual morning text from him when he goes on the road, which made her somewhat suspicious. Well, originally, a guy by the name of Derek Perkins was initially arrested on March 14th in connection to Mr. Millard's death on charges of damage to property, 3 counts of access device fraud, and unauthorized use of a motor vehicle. He was accused of using the deceased's debit card and was allegedly seen driving a stolen 2004 Toyota Camry near the crime scene. Now, Mr. Perkins, who is also an alleged drug dealer, later told police that Millard was involved with 4 prostitutes the night that he actually disappeared. Now, the dealer said that he had picked up Mr. Millard and 2 prostitutes, referring to C and LM, and drove them around a while they all got high. According to the arrest report, Mr. Millard was introduced to one of the prostitutes, who was black, by a homeless man referred only as JW, shortly after he was taken to the Greyhound bus station to withdraw money. While at the bus station, Mr. Miller denied an employee's offer for help and left with JW to find a prostitute to make him feel better. Well, the 2 introduced Miller to Perkins and drove around in the dealer's Toyota while they got high. Mr. Miller later went to a Circle K with the prostitutes around 4 a.m. to withdraw some more money. He then ditched the prostitutes inside and told Mr. Perkins he wanted a white girl instead, according to the police affidavits. There's surveillance footage from Circle K, which shows Mr. Miller basically being alive for the last time. According to the affidavit, Mr. Miller was headed to a home on Laurie Burgess Avenue where Mr. Perkins claimed he waited outside when the others were using syringes. Apparently, they were all up there doing that stuff, but he doesn't do any of that stuff, Mr. Perkins said. And Mr. Perkins was sent to a local store to use Millard's credit card to buy some undisclosed items. When he arrived back, he waited outside while all 3 of them were apparently having sex inside, the prostitutes and Mr. Millard. Shortly after, Mr. Barner told the dealer that Millard had died while they were in the home, and Barner rushed to grab a drug to reverse an overdose known as Narcan. But despite the drug and CPR, they all failed to revive him, and guess what? Now the father of 5 is dead. Rather than calling the police, the 3 allegedly then took matters into their own hands, wrapped Mr. Millard up in a carpet he collapsed on, and tossed him into the Toyota. His body was disposed of near the 2900 block of Scenic Highway and found days later by an unknown man who smelled something funny as he was walking by. Meanwhile, Perkins had allegedly spray painted the car's bumper, removed stickers, and swapped license plates while the news about the father's death came to light. Police have accused him of trying to disguise the car, obviously. He then sold the car and later burned it. Barner told police that she never met Millard. She claims Perkins picked her up on February 23rd in a panic for Narcan, according to her statement to the police. Now, Ms. Barner told investigators on March 14th that she had attempted to hop into the Toyota, but there was no room due to scattered clothing in the back seat and a white female in the front seat. Miller's phone was found not far from his hotel after preliminary discoveries uncovered footage of him walking around town. Footage released earlier this month showed Mr. Miller walking along Florida Boulevard in Louisiana after he left Happy Irish Bub when an employee cut him off for being too drunk. From there, Mr. Millard went to the bus station and then was reportedly seen roaming the area on multiple surveillance cameras, including with an unidentified man. Millard's toxicology results have not been released. We'll see what was in his system, perhaps. So I've said this before, and I get a lot of guff from it. like I said, business trips, conventions are like sleepovers for kids. People go to do what they can't do on their own. Now, don't get me wrong. I know there's lots of good people that go out there on legitimate business trips, but a lot of people go and do, well, kind of what Mr. Miller did. Go out drinking, have a few drinks. Next thing you know, you got a couple of prostitutes with you and things are going very, very poorly. Best advice, just don't put yourself in those types of situations. Just saying. All right, next, Stephen Smith. If you had doubts that Stephen Smith was not the victim of a hit and run, take a look at some of these pictures released from the scene back in 2015. Now, this case was all but closed or not being worked until SLED reopened the case or took new interest in it when a search warrant was conducted at the Moselle property related to the deaths of Paul and Maggie Murdaugh. Obviously, Alec Murdaugh was convicted of those murders. The case is now being looked at in regards to Stephen Smith as a homicide. Take a look at the blood loss. Now, that's why the police originally thought that Mr. Smith had been shot. And so they originally were investigating this as a homicide, a reasonable conclusion. Let's look at the facts. No tire marks, no broken glass, no paint transfer. His phone was still in his pocket, and his shoes, which are loosely tied, are still on him. If anybody's seen somebody hit by a car, yeah, something like that normally doesn't happen. Yes, there's blunt force trauma in the back of the head, but no other injuries or bruises anywhere else. Rather interesting. As I said, the investigators originally opined that the body had been dropped in the middle of the somewhat isolated road. And like I said, take a look at these photos. Tell me what you think. Now, there have been reports that Buster Murdaugh was involved or had something to do with the death of Stephen Smith. Now, none of these people have come forward willingly or publicly to say exactly why they believe this. Is this because they heard it from somebody who knew somebody, who had a friend, who knew a guy who was there, or were they actually there? So I think we have to take it kind of just as rumor. And as always, we always give everyone the presumption of innocence unless and until they've been found guilty or plead guilty in a court of law. And we would certainly do that for Buster Murdaugh as well. Next on the docket. Okay, I truly believe that jury selection is the most important part of a trial. The second most important part of a trial is the jury instructions. All right? Now, some viewers down in Alabama sent this to us, and they wanted me to explain it further. So an Alabama Court of Criminal Appeals reversed the murder conviction of a former Huntsville Police Department officer, a guy by the name of William Darby. Now, Mr. Darby was sentenced to 25 years in prison after being convicted in 2021 for an on-duty shooting of a guy by the name of Jeffrey Parker at Parker's home in Huntsville, like I said, back in 2018. Now, Darby's attorneys filed an appeal arguing the judge failed to give the jury an instruction related to the police officer's training in a situation with an armed suspect. And Darby argued that the trial court erred by refusing to give this requested instruction. It's referred to in the record as instruction number 35, which states as follows: the reasonableness of an officer's action in using deadly force must be objectively reasonable, judged from the perspective of a reasonable officer on the scene. The fact that officers are forced to make split-second decisions and in light of the facts and circumstances confronting them at the time. That's a significant defense instruction, particularly in officer-involved shootings. It's not just of a reasonable man, but what would an officer do based upon his reasonable training? And what would a reasonable officer have done? Anyway, the defense had argued the Darby shooting of Mr. Parker was due to Mr. Parker being armed and that Mr. Parker failed to put his weapon down. Well, the appellate court said, we acknowledge the state's argument, that's the prosecutor's argument in their briefs, that whether there should be a, quote, unique standards for police officers' use of deadly force in self-defense is a policy decision. But then the court notes the Alabama legislature, not the appellate court, should do that. But then, like I said, the appellate courts note, the legislature has provided this unique standard of police. In fact, they codified it in the statute, specifically statute 13A-3-27, subparagraph B, subparagraph 2. So the appellate courts ruled that since this was the law and the judge failed to instruct the jury on the law, the case needs to be reversed. It was reversible error. So the court noted that although people can argue for a change in policy, the law has not changed, and the court does not deal in possibilities when it comes to harmless error analysis regarding an erroneous refusal to give a requested jury instruction. That is a correct statement of the law. If we cannot conclude beyond a reasonable doubt that a jury evaluated Darby's use of force from the proper perspective, then we cannot conclude that the trial court committed harmless error by refusing to give requested instruction number 35 or some similarly worded instruction. I'm telling you, this is so important. Some judges take a very different perspective on jury instructions. They say, hey, the attorneys, you prepare a final draft and we'll kind of go through and see what we need. And if there's any disagreements, then the judge will decide. Other judges, and I think very good judges, are like, yeah, no, this is my trial in the sense that they're responsible to make sure the record is clean. And so the judges prepare the instructions. Certainly the defense can tender instructions. If those instructions are rejected, it becomes an appellate issue. Now, one of the greatest arguments that I think I've ever made, I should probably patent this, is basically when I say, Judge, I understand you don't want to give my proposed jury instruction, which is a correct statement of the law. And I understand if you're going to reject that. Judge, cases do not come back when you allow instructions to be considered, the jury considers them, and then rejects them. They come back when the court refuses them. And the mere standard to get an instruction is a mere scintilla of evidence. Here, the officer would have been entitled to that instruction because he was a police officer. So the prosecution messed up for not giving the appropriate instruction, and the judge messed it up, and the defense wasn't the one that did it. I get so many people that say, oh my gosh, how can you let innocent people, or I get so many people say, how can you let guilty people out on the streets? Oh my gosh. No, the prosecution fails to prove their case. And guess what? And sometimes defendants get convicted and they mess it up. And when we say they, the prosecution and the judge. Now, another interesting issue in this case was the defense also appealed on the grounds that Mr. Darby did not receive a fair trial because portions of the trial took place while a live feed camera for spectators and media watching from different courtrooms under the then COVID-19 protocols was turned off. The defense argued that Darby had his constitutional rights violated to a public trial. The Court of Appeals disagreed, stating that the primary purpose of the public trial is to protect the defendant from an unjust conviction, and it's difficult for the court to see how this safeguard was undermined when Mr. Darby has never alleged that anything erroneous occurred during those particular proceedings. Now, I would disagree with the court on that particular analysis. The reason why it is a public trial is that so nothing nefarious takes place. It's an open public trial. Now, in this particular case, I could probably see why they say nothing erroneous took place during the brief period of time when the camera was off. But it still goes to the position. If I've seen courtroom doors be locked and people kicked out and cases reversed for that. I've seen courtrooms cleared when child witnesses were going to testify. Cases reversed. So you can't have kind of a slippery slope here where the court says, well, it's okay. It was only a brief amount of time and you didn't say anything illegal took place. So what's really the harm? That's not the point. Probably not reversible error, but courts should have come down a little harder on, keep those cameras rolling, so to speak. I still think this is going to be a big issue in the Lori Vallow, Chad Daybell matters coming up since so much was done in private. And we'll see how that happens this next week in the Lori Vallow trial. Next on the docket, state legislators acting poorly. Well, at least one. Oklahoma State Representative Dean Davis was caught on camera telling police that, hey, you can't arrest me because of my political position, while being placed in handcuffs last week for public intoxication. Now, Mr. Davis, a Republican, had been drinking with friends at Skinny Slim's, a bar in Broken Arrow, Oklahoma, when police officers arrived. The police say he and his friends were refusing to leave the bar, which had closed, and were drinking out on the patio. Now, the body cam footage shows the officers putting legislator in handcuffs while he protested and told them to call their supervisors. He told them they weren't allowed to arrest him, claiming he was privileged from arrest during the legislative session. Well, no one called the police to the scene in this particular situation. Apparently, after completing the officers' shifts, the two officers had been driving back to the station when they saw Davis and his friends sitting on the patio. They approached the gentleman and told the men that they were breaching state law prohibiting drinking at the bar after 2 a.m., and it was 2:11 when the officers approached. The legislator Davis insisted that he wasn't drunk and that he had done nothing wrong. Speaking at the legislature last week, he said, "I understand that last night has become a story and that many of my colleagues in this House are being asked to comment on or explain last night's events, and I dispute any wrongdoing. However, I do want to take this opportunity to apologize to this body for creating this unnecessary distraction from the important work of the House. Thank you, members, for allowing me this time, and thank you, Mr. Speaker." Another state legislature that was there at the time said Davis was drinking a Dr. Pepper and was actually in the process of ordering an Uber when the police arrived. Let's get something straight. If you're a state legislator, you don't get a free pass for committing crime. Let's face it. Most states have provisions in their state constitution stating that legislators cannot be arrested coming to and from a session. I know it may be hard to believe, but can you believe this? But it used to be that political opponents would have their other political opponents arrested on their journey to take part in the legislative process and potentially to delay their votes. And so they would have a politically related sheriff arrest somebody on the way. But does that give them immunity for committing crimes? No, it does not. No, you can still be arrested for those crimes. You don't get a pass. And how many times have we seen drunk legislators out drinking at 2 a.m.? Didn't somebody, I guarantee, I bet you this guy probably wrote the law that said you can't be out drinking after 2 a.m. I mean, we'll give him the presumption of innocence. Maybe he was drinking a Dr. Pepper. I don't know. But once again, supposedly smart people making poor decisions. Just saying. You get the government that you deserve. Next on the docket, please meet Javon Jackson. He was arrested for speeding and also maybe a little weaving in and out of traffic. When the officers made contact with Mr. Jackson, they believed that he was going 100 miles per hour before he could finish. Mr. Jackson, though, interrupted and said that, no, I was only going 75. Well, needless to say, after a little more conversation, Mr. Jackson admitted to the officers that he was wrong for speeding. He then told the officers that the reason why he was speeding was he needed to get his girlfriend to Taco Bell in time for her job interview. And, well, Mr. Jackson shouldn't have been driving anyway because his license has been suspended. What makes things even a little more complicated for Mr. Jackson was that there were 3 juveniles in the back seat, only one of which was in a properly restrained chair. The police allege that he sped past an unmarked vehicle right before going into a no-passing zone where he almost caused a head-on collision between his black Mercedes and a white pickup truck. Fortunately, no one was injured. It's unclear if Mr. Jackson's Mercedes was damaged in any way while getting his girlfriend to her job interview at Taco Bell. We don't know if she made it to her interview either. Mr. Jackson, don't drive if you don't have a valid driver's license. If you do drive, I highly suggest you follow all the rules of the road and maybe a little better planning next time so your girlfriend can make it to her Taco Bell interview. If you need a few extra bucks, you can always sell the Mercedes. Just saying. Anyway, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time on Crime Talk.